Does this shoe really do that? This is the Spunge Osmosis, Salehe Bembury's first ever sponge footwear. And I think it's fair to say, in a year when some of the wildest footwear I've ever seen is released, this is one of the wildest pairs. Over the last decade, Salehe Bembury has cemented himself as one of the most influential people in the footwear industry. Through his work at brands like Versace and Yeezy and his collaborations with New Balance, Anta, Crocs, and Puma, Salehe Bembury is not only one of the most prolific collaborators out there, but he's absolutely one of the most unique when it comes to his design language. But this shoe is different. It's not a collaboration, it's not an update on a previously released silhouette. This is a brand new pair of sneakers straight from the mind of Salehe Bembury. For the last few years, Salehe Bembury has been working on his own brand, Spunqe. Through Spunqe, he's been able to exercise his creative vision on a ton of different products like apparel. But finally, in 2025, Salehe Bembury and his brand Spunqe has released their very first piece of footwear. So the official name of this silhouette is the Spunge Osmosis, and it released in 4 different colorways through Spunqe's website on October 13th. A 5th colorway that came in like all gray and white in collaboration with Rizzoli, the company that published his book, Salehe Bembury, I Make Shoes, released on October 15th for that same $150 retail price point, and all 5 of these colorways were incredibly limited and completely sold out. Now, while this much smaller quantity first release took place on his website, we're getting a larger release around November 15th. I think the actual date is November 15th through different footwear stores. I'm not sure exactly what those stores will be or what those websites will be, but there will be a wider release in like a month. So if you missed out, good news is you should be able to get a pair for yourself. Huge thank you to Salehe, by the way, for sending me this pair. I think this pair is actually a sample, which is mad cool, so I'm excited about that. And I love shoes like this. Not just crazy looking pairs of sneakers, but shoes from brands that maybe aren't as established as like a Nike or an Adidas. Independent shoes really is what it is. The cool thing about independent brands releasing their own footwear is not just that it's very, very difficult to do that, especially when you're doing it from scratch like this. Presumably for this shoe, Salehe had to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars, well probably his brand and maybe whatever investors are involved, into cutting molds for this brand new shape. Because this is a completely new design, you can't just pull molds off the shelf. You actually have to cut them, which is a very expensive process for every single size, by the way, too. So you're spending $20,000 on each mold, and then you gotta get a different mold made for each size. It's a very expensive process. But again, that's why independent footwear is so cool, because whether the brand is creating their own footwear from scratch and every aspect of the shoe is from scratch, like this particular shoe, or whether they're sourcing like a Vibram midsole or something like that and then attaching it to a unique upper, there's always something different and there's always a really interesting story behind each piece of independent footwear. And I think just that entire process is so interesting, and it's so cool to see people trying something different without the aid or the guardrails of a big brand behind them. So mad respect to Salehe Bembury and anyone else out there who's created and produced their own footwear. It is not easy. I've sort of done it. I created some shoes with Zellerfeld. I've dropped some shoes with some other brands a few years ago, but I never went through the process of cutting my own tooling. I never invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into getting a midsole made specifically. Like with the Zellerfelds, which is by far the widest release of a shoe that I've ever done, that was fully 3D printed. So we gave them a CAD model and they printed it. It's actually a pretty streamlined process. It's not as cheap as you would think, but it is a pretty streamlined process. So from someone who's created his own footwear and it wasn't easy, it was definitely still easier than doing something like this from absolute scratch. Also, I should mention that if you're interested in Salehe Bembury at all, if you like his work, or you're interested in some of the stories behind his collaborations, or even advice that he'd have to young designers, check out the upcoming podcast that I have with Salehe Bembury dropping this Monday. It's on the Shoes Off podcast channel, linked in the top of the description below. I'm also dropping a video on this channel as well, but the full conversation will be on the Shoes Off podcast. Again, linked in the description below. You can also check it out on Spotify, Apple Music, things like that. It's an incredible episode. We also had Jeff Staple on the podcast. That episode just dropped this week, so there's a lot of like really crazy episodes. And Steven Smith. We've had some of the most influential sneaker designers ever on this podcast. You guys, you gotta subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, you're missing out. If you're interested at all in footwear, subscribe. But as usual, before we get into the shoe itself, let's first check out the box. And another perk, at least for me, of reviewing independent footwear is that you never know exactly what the packaging is gonna look like. In this case, it's cool. You've got this essentially raw cardboard box with these printed details and this very Salehe Bembury sort of organic pattern. You've got the Spunge logo right there on the side. Doesn't seem like there's any text around the box on any other side other than the front. You've got the other Spunge logo right there with the fish. I think that's a fish. Pretty sure that's a fish. I was sent a size 9, which is my true size. And the official name of this colorway, or the color that is spec'd, is blue, light blue, orange. I wonder if that is the official name of the colorway. Let me check. Malawi, that's the name of the colorway. It is the Malawi colorway. There's also the Slaw colorway, the Hmong colorway, the Yukon colorway, and of course the Rizzoli colorway. I do think if I had my choice of picking a colorway, I probably would have gone with the Malawi colorway because it's different, but I also really like that Rizzoli colorway because it's a bit more like toned down, a little bit more subtle. They're both fire. Inside the box, you do get some very nice, unique paper. It's actually like the slit paper It's kind of pressed out in different ways to create this cool pattern. This pair, because it was seated, came with a note. Huge thank you again to Salehe Bembury, really appreciate it, it's awesome. Really excited about that. And also attached to the shoes when I got them was a sponge hang tag. Then on the back actually reads, the organic beginning of something special. Very cool. All right, but now into the shoes themselves. While this shoe is a completely brand new design from Salehe Bembury, it does look like something that Salehe would create. There's a lot of details on this shoe that maybe aren't pulled directly from previous work that he's done, but definitely feature the same sort of organic kind of design language that he uses. Now, one of the things that I was wondering about this shoe before I got it in hand, before I even knew that I was getting sent this pair, was what is this shoe made for? Is it a lifestyle shoe? Is it a hiking shoe? Is it an athletic shoe? I wasn't totally sure. But based on some of the marketing material that I've read online, it does seem like it's primarily a lifestyle shoe for just day-to-day wear. It can also be hiked in, but it does seem like this shoe is made to be worn for everyday use. That being said, there are some details on this shoe that make me think that it's gonna be a bit more durable and a bit more longer lasting than other pairs of footwear, and it also could probably stand up to something like a hike. And the detail in particular that I'm referencing is this rubber mudguard that comes in blue and actually wraps all the way around the toe of the sneaker. Now, it's actually a pretty thick material, feels very durable and very scratch resistant. Like, you could really bang your foot against a rock and it would hurt, but it wouldn't damage your shoes. Moving up from there, the base material of the upper seems to be this sort of solid diamond patterned nylon material. I think it's a nylon of some kind. It's another material that can withstand some sort of wear and tear. It's not the most breathable, but as we go into winter, that's actually probably a good thing. On top of the toe, you've got like this fuse overlay material that's stitched on around the edges, which add this nice extra element or this extra detail, which I really like. Moving up from there, you've got the eye stays, which come in this fabric that is actually padded from behind, so it's a little puffy. And then weaving through the eyelets, you've got these flat blue laces. Now, in my particular box, I didn't get an extra set of laces. I don't know if the standard retail pair comes with an extra set of laces, but if you got a pair, let me know in the comment section down below. Beneath the laces, you've got more of that teal material and a very well padded tongue. It's actually a very squishy tongue. It's not like overly puffy, but it is very soft. And then towards the top of the tongue, you've got this blue mesh, which actually features this really cool tactile detail right here. So this, if you guys can see that, this is sort of a rubberized area that has a lot of texture that actually reminds me a lot of the midsole. And it's really great for pulling the shoe onto your foot. Like, it gives you a place to kind of grab it. Moving inside the shoe, you've got this blue, pretty well padded sock liner. The insole of the shoe, I actually didn't pull this out yet. Let me see it. Wow, it's actually a lot thicker than I would have expected. It's a nice soft foam material. I wonder if a lot of the cushion comes from this, because we'll talk about this in a second, but the foam underfoot is soft, but it's not like super soft, and it does feel like there's some sort of board in between your foot and the mesh. So it's possible that a lot of the step-in comfort actually comes from this. Either way, you've got the Spunqe logo there on the heel. It is specifically an ortholite foam, if you were wondering. But getting into sizing and fit, true to size Seth strikes again with another true to size rating. Not only does it say the shoe fits true to size on the website, but I can confirm with my, I'm not gonna put my foot up because I'm not wearing any Apothecary socks right now. It's bare and you guys have to pay for that. But I'm a size 9, this shoe is a size 9, and I would say that it fits me true to size. I had enough room, but not too much room. Like, it was a perfect fit. I'd say 1-to-1 fit. It's flexible, but it's not like overly flexible. Like, you're not gonna get like a lot of extra room. So yeah, maybe if you're a wide footer, go up half a size. Continuing back in the shoe to the midfoot, you've got this Spunqe logo, the Spunqe splat, and then you've got this Spunqe tag towards the top of the ankle opening. The medial side, bare. Clean and simple. As you move towards the heel of the sneaker, you've got some more of these fuse overlay details that all kind of converge towards the back of the shoe. On the very back of the shoe, or on the very back of the heel, you've got another one of these thick rubber accents with these perforated hits, and you've got a pull tab with the Spunqe logo right there. But now it's time to answer the question that I'm sure many of you have. Does the midsole of this shoe do this? So this video is from an Instagram story that Salehe Bembury posted months ago, responding to a comment, and a lot of people, including myself, took this idea and ran with it. I think a lot of people thought that this was a technology that he was specifically working on and was trying to create a shoe that did exactly this. Now, when I saw Salehe for the podcast, I did actually get a chance to ask him, does the shoe actually do that? And the answer is no, it doesn't. Which honestly is a good thing, because if the shoe did this, anytime you hit anything sharp, your shoe's going splat. And yes, I understand that the Spunqe logo is a splat, but that's probably not exactly what you want from your $150 shoes. So this video is from like a super early prototype or a proof of concept that inspired the aesthetics of the outside of the shoe, but the actual functionality of the shoe is completely different. While yes, the midsole of the shoe is made up of a technology called Squish Tech, which is actually, I believe, the foam encased in this TPU cage, it doesn't compress anywhere close to that. In fact, I would say that the midsole itself isn't even like as soft as something like React or Boost. The orange foam inside the midsole, I would say, is softer than a standard EVA foam, but because it's encased in this TPU cage that is honestly pretty stiff, although it does offer a lot of structure, you're not gonna get as much compression as I think you would expect. That being said, it's not uncomfortable, it's not a stiff shoe, but the compression is nowhere near as much as this video would make you think. Now, I realize it was probably unintentional, but the hype that video built for this shoe, incredible. Like, people are stoked on trying this shoe because of that video. And whether you view it as unfortunate or fortunate that it doesn't do that, it did get a lot of people talking, and that's like the best kind of marketing you can have. So Salehe, that was smart. I don't think it was on purpose. Maybe it was, but nice. In terms of stability, this shoe is incredibly stable because, like I said, this TPU is pretty thick and pretty stiff. So you're really not gonna have any kind of wobbling on the shoe. And the midsole itself is like, as you can see, it's not like a super bendable midsole, barely any torsional twisting to speak of. So the TPU is definitely doing its job. Again, it's not as soft as I think a lot of people would expect. It's very wearable, it's very comfortable, but it's not gonna make any like softest shoe of the year list. Now in terms of the actual design of the midsole, you've got this dot pattern that grows as it moves towards the back of the shoe. It also kind of inverts as well, so it goes from being in this embossed texture to this punched out texture in the midfoot, and then sort of this like almost, I don't even know what to call that, like to this very like biophilic oval extrusion. I don't know exactly how to describe it. It's different, it's cool, and it's absolutely Salehe Bembury. On the medial side, you've got the call out for Squish Tech right there. And then we move to the bottom of the shoe where you've got this blue rubber traction, which actually is very, very thick. So again, this should last you a while. I also really like the organic shape that this traction pattern has, and also that it kind of like mimics almost like a canyon. You've got these orange hits, which is actually the foam that you can feel in the midsole in between, and then you've got Spunge, and of course the Spunge logo right there. Something that was really interesting to me about this shoe is that I didn't find any fingerprints. Usually Salehe shoes, or at least the ones that he's done in collaboration with other brands, feature his fingerprint. Now it's very possible that that was a detail that he only includes on his collaborations to literally put his signature, his fingerprint on the shoe, and this one, the entire shoe itself is kind of a representation of his fingerprint. I think I cracked the code. I think that was it. I filmed the YouTube short before this and I couldn't like really figure out a good way to describe it. I think I just described it. But what I'm trying to say is that there's actually no specific fingerprint detail on this shoe, unless maybe the outsole is like a super zoomed in version of his fingerprint, or maybe this like tiny wavy pattern that you can't really see. Maybe I can like really zoom in there. That sort of tiny wavy pattern that's kind of pressed into the rubber. Maybe that is his fingerprint. But I think it was the first thing that I said. I don't remember exactly what I said or how I said it, but I think it was that. So overall, how is the Salehe Bembury Spunge Osmosis? Well, first of all, I think the shoe is really interesting because while there were probably design constraints and things that he had to change because of maybe manufacturing constraints, this is exactly how he would create a shoe from scratch. Every detail on this shoe is considered and thought about specifically by Salehe. It's not him recoloring another shoe or changing up a shoe like the 574s he did with New Balance, where it is a pretty different looking shoe, but it's still a 574. This is truly his shoe from scratch. So in that regard, very, very cool. At the same time, his design language isn't for everybody. Realistically, the only shoes that are for everybody are probably like Air Force Ones or something very basic, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I can definitely understand why some people might love this shoe and other people might not. And that's why I think he's also releasing much more toned down colorways like the Rizzoli collaboration, because that shoe doesn't look as wild as this one. Like this bright blue color, I get it. It's out there, it's bright. Matches my hat perfectly. Shout out to whatever kind of blue this is. Our blue pretty much broke hats actually just restocked on apothecary.com along with our green hats and our brown hats. Now they're not numbered like the first release, but they are dope and they are selling very quickly. So if you want to grab one, links in the description below, and actually also probably tagged in the YouTube shopping tab. Oh, and before I forget, use code Seth for $10 off of your first order. That's socks, hats, whatever you want to grab on apothecary.com. Use code Seth, $10 off. The shoe is unique. The shoe is unique. And I really like the uniqueness of it because I like the story that it tells about Salehe. I really like that this shoe perfectly embodies his design language. And not just that, but perfectly embodies his design language in this moment. Every designer grows and changes based on experience, based on projects that they're working on, based on the point of life that they're in. So this shoe is like a perfect representation of Salehe Bembury at this current moment, or realistically probably a year or two ago, whenever he started designing this, maybe 2 years ago, I have no idea. But this shoe represents him 100% in a way that no collaboration and no even shoe from like an Asics or a Nike or an Adidas ever could, because even if the designer is designing the shoe from scratch, they still have to create a shoe that fits within whatever the brand brief is. Whereas this shoe is a shoe from Salehe's brand. In the same way that Jeff Staples shoes are a perfect representation of Staple, which is a perfect representation of Jeff Staple, because that's a brand that he created, that he controls, that he designs for. Again, bringing me back to the conversation of independent designers and how much I like independent designers. And not to go off topic again, but I do think this year for my top 10 best sneakers of the year list, I'm actually gonna do it in categories rather than one overall top sneaker of the year. I think I'm gonna do like best independent, best Air Jordan, best running sneaker, best lifestyle sneaker, things like that. So if you have any suggestions for categories that you'd like to see, or maybe even drop some of your favorite sneakers of the year in the comment section down below, I think I might do like 4 or 5 categories and kind of do that. So let me know your thoughts. So again, not to go off track, but that's something I'm thinking about. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comment section down below. All that being said, I love this shoe for what it is. I'm really excited for more people to get their hands on this and to see more content about this shoe because it really is different. So let me know your thoughts on Salehe Bembury's first ever signature shoe from his brand Spunqe, the Spunge Osmosis. Let me know those thoughts in the comment section down below, along with all the other comments I asked you to comment. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. Don't forget to check out next week's episode of the Shoes Off Podcast with Salehe Bembury as the guest, and I will see you all in the next one.